Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to see you're still in the room, and hopefully you can join us as we go through something which we think is slightly different from the average discussion as it relates to crowding in private capital and mobilizing private capital. I think we're going to place a lot of emphasis on the word scale. So I think I've already been able to illustrate scale, but just by the number of people that we have on our panel. But although I don't think that's the job done yet, because I think you're going to be more impressed with what they have to say than the constellation of them all set out there. So first of all, a very warm welcome to you to this particular panel on closing the emerging markets and developing countries investment gap. We're calling it a lab session as distinct from a sort of a normal panel discussion, because I sort of view each and every one of my esteemed colleagues here as scientists. They've been passionately experimenting, exploring solutions for the, problem of addressing this market failure of mobilizing private capital at scale for developing countries for a very long time, decades in some cases. So this lab arrangement is really designed to have them share the findings of all of their experience and expertise to put forward a number of very key and specific solutions and recommendations that ultimately will be shared with the COP28 presidency. I think we all may have a perspective on that. COP26 got the finance agenda, onto the, COP process. COP27 then doubled down on that, started talking a little bit more about multilateral development banks. And now we know that COP28 is really seeking to put finance front and center. And we think that this is going to be a contribution towards that thinking going forward. So we're going to address a number of different points. It's sort of broken up into two segments. The first one is really going to be looking at the fundamentals and the imperatives around addressing scale. And I think what we want to sort of move away from is this sort of discussion around developing countries and emerging markets and getting to scale. And then we then end up talking about these little micro approaches. And then when you conglomerate them all, we know that it's a very small piece of the overall agenda. So this panel and my esteemed scientists and reporters are going to address that. So we're going to be looking at private capital mobilization at scale strategies, the role of data and securitization, the infamous GEMS database. We're going to be talking very specifically about the bankable project pipeline. That's a $3 trillion nationally determined contribution project pipeline in Africa, or larger. It's a $23 trillion potential bankable pipeline for emerging markets, or larger. We're going to be addressing that. We're also going to be talking about the enabling investment climate and how hospitable the legal and regulatory frameworks and the procurement frameworks are to crowd in the participation of private capital and investment at scale. And then we're going to round off. We have three colleagues that are asset owners and from the asset owner community that are really going to, again, add their voice, talk about some of the really important things that they're doing and some of their perspectives about how to mobilize private capital at scale.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.